Welcome to the Game 7 show. It's another Tuesday in Denver, Colorado. I'm Will Satler alongside Bugarin for episode 38 on October 15, 2019 from Met Radio for Game 7.
Wow, I really like this song that you chose for the intro today, man.
I know, I picked this one just for you.
What song is this?
This is Pretty Young Thing.
Oh, okay.
Thing. You gotta have a thing.
I want to love you, pretty young thing.
Ooh, okay.
That was pretty good, man. For us, like, not planning that.
Yeah.
That was pretty good. Maybe we should be like, we should start, instead of a podcast, dude, maybe we should start doing like a duet thing. You want to do that? We could bring back some classic songs. We could do some Backstreet Boys, some NSYNC, some old school Justin Timberlake.
I call being Gabriella.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Okay, you can be Troy.
I think we could do a little duet. This is the Game 7 podcast, hosted by Met Radio. Met Radio is the student voice of MSU Denver. Met Radio is a small part of Met Media. Met Media is basically the student-run organization that brings you the magazine, the newspaper, the TV, and obviously the radio for MSU Denver. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. You can hit us up with questions for all of our podcasts. Interact with us on social media. We make some pretty good takes, I think, but if you don't like our takes, email us, game7show@gmail.com. Facebook, you can message us there or like our content, Game 7 Show. YouTube is where we post the full-length video clips of this podcast, so if you want to watch the video instead of listen to the podcast, that is Game 7 Show. We have all of our podcasts there, at least the videos, for a majority of them. You could find us on Twitter @_Game7. I pretty much run that social media account, so I like to think I'm pretty funny. I tweet some pretty funny stuff, and I retweet some pretty funny stuff. But that's just me. I just think I'm a little biased.
Sometimes you're just a little out of line, yeah. Very biased sometimes. But you know, that's okay.
You can follow Will @Will Satler. You can follow myself @Isaac_Bugarin. I got asked how to spell my last name. It's Bugarin.
Bugarin.
Correct.
Bugarin. Bugarino.
If you want to put some spice on it, it's Bugarin.
Bugarin.
You got to roll that R, man. Bugarin.
Yeah. Okay,
It is Tuesday, October 15th. A lot of sports is going on this week. We got playoff baseball. The Avs are back. Nuggets is counting down the days. We got the home opener, or at least a preseason home opener for the Nuggets on Thursday night. We've got a Broncos Chiefs game on Thursday night.
We got a hockey game on Thursday night.
Yeah, we got a hockey game on Thursday night. We got playoff baseball still.
We got no Rockies.
Yeah, because they suck. We bring you a new show every single Tuesday. Pretty much, we post this podcast probably right about, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesdays. You can listen to it on your drive home from Tuesdays. If you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud, you'll get the notification when a new episode goes live.
As soon as I post it, it goes boop. I'm like, I'll post it, and I'm like, wow, my phone just went off. Who texted me? And I'm like, oh, it's just Apple Podcast. So, yeah.
You got a dry phone, man, if that's the case.
It's true. Oh,
but new show every single Tuesday. I've thought about doing, we've talked about it on the show before, about doing more podcasts, like, in a week. Like, trying to find the time to do another one. Like, if you want to make this a bi-weekly podcast, or maybe like an every 3 days podcast.
Bi-weekly would mean like we do it every 2 weeks.
No, bi-weekly, you do it twice in a week.
Because I get paid bi-weekly, so therefore I get paid every 2 weeks.
Okay, so then what is it when you do 2 podcasts in a week?
That's just like a 2-day-a-week podcast, I think. Like, I don't know.
There's a specific word. I don't know. But we thought about doing that. We'll keep the options open. Wow, I'm looking at all the songs that we got scheduled for today, for this podcast. Pretty good songs, man.
Really?
You did all right.
You really think so?
You did all right.
Oh man, I was just looking at.
I don't want to spoil them, but you'll listen to the songs as they go on today, or at least the instrumentals to these songs as they come on.
Yeah, we can't get copyrighted. Huh. You know, we want to be able.
Why don't we have any country music in there, man? I like country music.
I know, but like it's really hard to find good country instrumentals. Who makes country instrumentals anymore?
They all do, man.
No,
we're not. I'm not saying we need the yeehaw country music. I'm just like some Thomas Rhett, some upbeat country music, some Kane Brown. You know what I'm saying?
Maybe I'll throw that in there for you. Today.
You know, some Luke Bryan is pretty good. Let me see. Who else am I thinking of that has some good instrumentals? Sam Hunt might have a couple good instrumentals.
Luke Combs, bro. Luke Combs. That's your boy.
That's a little bit more yeehaw, a little bit more.
What's wrong with yeehaw?
Slow down. Well, it doesn't make for good instrumentals, man.
Well, they're all good, bro. They're all good.
Okay. Well, Will, tell me what we're going to talk about in today's podcast, man.
I feel like we should talk about sports today.
That's a great take right there. If you liked that take, game7show@gmail.com. Let us know what you think about that.
We will do today in history, postseason baseball. There's actually some crazy stuff going on today. The Yankees and Astros are in New York, but they could not play tonight. That would be pretty crazy, to say the least.
Yeah, it would.
Broncos get their second win of the year. That's pretty crazy. It's all pretty crazy stuff. Avs are 5-0. Crazy. Fortnite is back?
Where did it go, man?
Into a black hole, I guess.
Huh. Interesting.
And then we'll close up the show. We'll get new dogs or something from the shelter. I don't know.
So today in sports history, 1912, Red Sox Tris Speakers makes the only World Series unassisted double play from the outfield. How do you think he did that from the outfield?
Unassisted double play?
Yeah.
Well, he could have made one of those plays like where it's a blooper or whatever, and he like runs in and catches it, and then like he just kept running. He just touched second base on his way in.
Touches the base himself?
What outfield position was he playing? Was he playing?
It doesn't say. I don't know.
Could have been in right field like Charlie Blackmon, or he could be in center. I feel like that'd be easier from center.
Yeah, because you're close to the base. Or left. I mean,
double plays from the outfield happen a lot. It's just the unassisted piece.
No, actually, it might so it might be in Fenway Park. So if he's playing left field, it's a very short left field. So it could have been like a runner was stealing first, or stealing from first, and then it makes a diving play. Runner just kept going, thinking he was gonna fall.
You know what's crazy?
He goes to touch second or first or whatever.
What if it was a hit and it turned into a double play? Like what if it bounced off the green monster and rolled all the way back to the infield, and then he caught it, and then the runners like overran each other? I don't know. I mean, it was 1912. They didn't really know how to play baseball then.
Strange. In 1988, this is one of my favorite. I can't say. Okay, so it's one of my favorite moments in baseball history, but it's not really. I don't like it because it has to do with the Dodgers. 1988, bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. Kirk Gibson hits a dramatic 2-run home run to give the Dodgers a 5-4 win in Game 1 of the World Series against the Oakland Athletics. I've seen so many documentaries about this.
It's one of your favorite sports history moments of October 15th, because I think there's another one on this list that you would like more.
Oh, 100%.
So that's pretty crazy. Two of the top baseball like moments in our lives happened today. Well, 3, I guess. Tris Speaker's double play.
This Kirk Gibson home run. I mean, I feel like we've seen it thousands of times in my life at least. You see the home run. I can't believe what I just saw. And then you see the parking lights in right field in the parking lot that people hit their brakes as they hear on the radio a home run.
No way.
Yeah, you could see it. Like, so you know at Dodger Stadium it's open in the outfield, right? So you got like kind of these covers over the bleachers right there, and you can see through like a poles or whatever that is in right field, left field, and center field. And you can see it's an all parking lot back there. I haven't been to Dodger Stadium yet, but it's all parking lots that's in the outfield.
Right.
And so as he hits the home run, and as you hear the call, you see parking lights just turn on, as if they stopped their car because they just heard what had happened. So kind of crazy to think of that.
It's freaking crazy, man.
In 1993, this one's kind of funny. Darryl Strawberry, he's 31 years old, divorces his wife Lisa Andrews after more than 8 years of marriage. Sorry to hear about that, Darryl.
What were they, 23, 22 when they got married? Maybe 23, huh?
8 years. Yeah, so he would have been 23.
That's really young to get married.
Can you imagine if I got married in 2 years? I'm 21, and I'm 23 to get married.
Even crazier, like he is, because there's like some college football players that
Lisa
get married,
probably took half of his money, half of everything.
Yeah, prenup, bro. Prenup.
Yep.
Kanye said it best.
1997, a New York jury awards Mitch Green $45,000 in a civil lawsuit against Mike Tyson for a street brawl that happened in 1988, so 9 years prior. What would you do if you saw Mike Tyson on the street?
I'd probably just be like, oh, that's Mike Tyson. Probably wouldn't say anything.
What if you wanted to throw hands?
I'd probably run away, man. That's Mike Tyson. Unless he's done something. Like, what if he hit somebody that I care about or anybody? What if he's like...
Really?
But if he throws out a piece of trash, I'm going to be like, you don't like the environment.
Oh.
Well,
if he's going to try to fight you, like, would you just take this guy got $45,000 in 1997, so obviously $45,000 is a lot more then than it is today.
Let me make sure to correct you here. The jury doesn't award the money. It's the judge. The jury decides if he's guilty or not of the crime that he committed. And then if the jury decides he's guilty, then the judge decides the crime.
I'm just going off the internet, man.
Well, not everything you read on the internet is true.
All right. Well,
Just so you know.
$45,000. I would take.
I mean, that was a lot of money then, right?
To take a hit from Mike Tyson, $45,000.
But this guy probably fought back. You wouldn't just like take a hit. If he hits me, I'm gonna probably be like, "Yo,
This is a world class boxer, man. This is a world class. His hands are literally like legally. His hands are weapons because that's how strong. That he's a fighter, dude. His hands are weapons.
But it's also New York, right? That's just like normal commonplace there. Just fight.
Street brawl, fights.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily
Don't
normal.
you remember we did that in New York when we were there?
We did not fight anybody when we were in New York.
No, you and me. We fought. You don't remember that?
No.
It was in Times Square. Because remember, the dude that was dressed up as Spider-Man was like, "Yo!"
I don't remember.
Yeah,
it was so cold.
neither.
It was like
it didn't
20.
actually happen.
I was going to say, I don't remember that. This is my favorite one today in sports history on today's October 15th. Is that what we said? 2007. October 15th, 2007. Colorado Rockies complete a sweep over the Arizona Diamondbacks in the NLCS to advance to their first and only World Series. It would be the last win that this team got in 2007.
That is true. That is very, very true. But it was like 21 of 22. So, I mean, that's pretty damn good.
It would have been the 21st victory of 22 games.
So they went 21 and 5.
21-5 to end the season.
That's pretty good. And you didn't believe?
I was, what?
I didn't really understand it at that time. I was
9 years old.
I was 7, so I didn't really understand it. I was just like, the harder you cheer, the better they play. Yeah. I think I was a Mammoth fan at that time, like the Colorado Mammoth.
Huh.
John Grant Jr. is a GOAT.
I remember in 2007, my dad pulled me out of class to watch. We played the Phillies in the first round. I'll never forget. We played the Phillies in the first round. It was game 1.
Yeah.
It was a day game. And my dad comes up to school and pulls me out of class. And I walked down to the office, like over the intercom. They're like, "Whatever, teacher, can you send Isaac Bugarin and Andrew Bugarin to the front office? They're leaving." and so I walk up to the office. I was like, "Oh crap! I wonder why I'm leaving." And then my dad shows up and he's just like, "We're going to watch a baseball game." I told him we were going to a dentist. And we went home, watched the baseball game. We did that for like all the postseason games, 2007 and 2009.
I mean, you only get to watch it once. The thing they always say, right? They may never make it there again. So
yeah, exactly. So I remember that 2007. My dad was pulling me out of class, me and my brother, to go watch baseball.
You just exposed him. He's now arrestable under the Colorado law.
I don't
you know
think
that?
so. That's not true.
Do you not understand the law?
That's
That's lying.
But that is today in sports history, October 15th, from 1912, 1988, 1993, 1997, and 2007. Great stuff right there, man. Great stuff. Colorado Rockies advancing to their first and only World Series, because I don't think we'll make it again until like 2057 at this rate.
Wow, that's a hot take. Well, you know who else is advancing to their first World Series with one more win?
The Washington Nationals.
No, it's the New York Yankees. They've never been there before. Or just once or twice.
That's
more than
14.
27 times? Like, how many times?
This would be... They've won 27 times.
Yeah, they've been there like twice as much, so like 52 times probably. That's a good question.
I don't think 27 times 2 is 52.
Yeah, it is.
It's 54, dude. It's simple math, man. I'm not a math major, and even I know that. Nationals win Game 5 in Los Angeles to advance to the NLCS, and they win these first 3 games against the Cardinals. What do you think about that, Will?
They've actually... Let me go back. The Yankees have won every World Series they've ever played in.
That is not true.
I'm just kidding. Come on, man. Take a joke today. It's 40. 40 is the correct term. So they're 27 and 13. What was your question? I was looking it up.
What do you think about the Nationals
Beating
beating the Dodgers? You called it, man.
I called it, man.
You called it.
I just had a feeling. I mean, it's rightfully so. The Dodgers just could put it together, I guess. The MVP, or the so-called MVP, kind of disappeared in postseason. I mean, they just outplayed them. It's the hottest team. The Nationals were the hottest team in baseball.
We've said it on this podcast before. It's not about the best team in October. It's about the hottest team in October. And the Nationals are undoubtedly the hottest team in all of baseball right now.
And that if you go to the other side, the Rays almost took down the Astros.
Yeah.
In the AL, and there was a good chance. Like, I mean, if Garrett Cole's not pitching that Game 5, then I don't know. Houston's been good, and like you said, their pitching hasn't been half bad, but I don't know, man. I mean, they're not going to lose game 3 because Garrett Cole's pitching unless it rains. And then you know how that goes.
Who's going up for the Yankees in game 3?
It would be...
Wait, I thought tonight was going to be a bullpen game.
It could be.
I thought it was going to be Greinke and... who was it? I just saw that tweet about it.
I've heard that Garrett Cole's supposed to start tonight. But it's very true that if they don't play, then it could become a bullpen game. I mean, they play 3 days in a row now. So game 3, game 4, and game 5 are back-to-back-to-back. I think there's 0 chance, maybe 1% chance that they do a doubleheader or something like that. Could you imagine that?
I don't think they're doing. I don't think it's
ever happened.
Not in postseason baseball.
But you are correct. I see this article from ESPN. This is Marley Rivera at 4:33 p.m. So, I mean.
Here's a tweet from Lindsay Adler. Yankees and Astros are both planning bullpen games for tomorrow, which may be rained out. So wondering if they'd both benefit from a game being moved, so that way they can start Tanaka, Greinke on regular rest, but then they'd have up to 4 games in a row in 2 cities. So pretty much what they're saying is tonight's game is going to get played. Game 3 is going to get played. Tomorrow's game 4 is the one that they're worried about.
It's going to be a bullpen game.
Getting delayed.
So tonight you'll have Luis Severino for the Yankees. He's made like 4 or 5 starts all year because he hasn't been healthy. And then you get probably the Cy Young, Garrett Cole, who they haven't lost the game that he's pitched in quite a long time. So that's almost a shoo-in for, I mean, we said that, but then Jack Flaherty goes out there against the Nationals and gives up
6 runs in like 3
runs,
innings.
And he hadn't given up runs in forever. So 100% chance of rain for Wednesday's game. It's an 8:07 Eastern start time, so 6 o'clock here, prime time. That's for game 4 at Yankee Stadium. 100% chance of rain. I mean, rain is rain.
So if they're gonna cancel this Wednesday game or postpone it to Thursday, so game 4 is Thursday. They'll play game 5 on Friday,
which was the travel day.
Yeah.
So then they lose the travel day, and then game 6 goes back to Houston, if I'm not mistaken. It's 2-2 or 2-3-2, right?
Yeah, correct.
I thought it was the other way around. I didn't know that it was 2.
I think that's an NBA.
That just doesn't seem right that it would be like that. It seems very, I don't know. But it could also alter. So, well,
so today's Astros Yankees game, game 3 is scheduled for today at 2 p.m. So here in about an hour. Game 4 is tomorrow at 6 p.m. at Yankee Stadium. Game 5 is scheduled for Thursday night at 6 p.m. in Yankee Stadium. Game 6 is scheduled for, if needed, is a 2 o'clock game, 2 p.m. game on Saturday, and Game 7 would be Sunday night.
And also keep in mind, if it could also affect the NLCS, depending on how that goes. So if Game 4 is rained out, then Game 5, or the potential Game 5 for Washington St. Louis, that would be moved to the night, because the MLB would prefer that the game is in prime time.
Game 5 is already at night.
The NLCS game is currently scheduled to start at 4:08 p.m. Eastern time. So Game 5 could possibly be in the NLCS, pushed back to a night game, so 2 hours, essentially. They would make this announcement prior to Wednesday, sources said. Key there. Sources said. It would give time for the teams and fans to adjust. I mean, when the Nuggets and the Avs were in the playoffs, I built my schedule around those games, right? So imagine your team being in the ALCS, right? You're going to build your schedule, especially if you're a big fan. So that's important. But it could all not matter if Washington wins tonight, or today's their day off, right?
No. Game 4 should be tonight because they played last night.
Game 4 tonight. So the Washington could punch their ticket tonight. And then we create the same argument that we made a couple weeks ago.
And then you're looking at the World Series not starting until Tuesday, the 22nd?
Yeah. So
they could have up to a week off,
which could be a good or a bad thing.
The 2007 Rockies, a perfect example.
Yeah.
Where you sweep in the NLCS, and then you're waiting around for a week for a team from the AL East, the Yankees.
It'll be really interesting. I mean, if Game 4 is moved to Thursday, the Yankees would likely start Tanaka. He would pitch on regular rest. Same goes for Greinke, who would pitch on regular rest. But neither of them have been necessarily good in the playoffs so far.
And then either way, if they push back Game 5, then you're still looking at Game 6 to be a bullpen game.
I mean, this is two of the best bullpens in baseball.
So
that we're talking about
it's either both of these teams are throwing a bullpen game, or you're gonna have to bring in a fourth starter.
Game 2 was a bullpen game, arguably, for the Yankees. I mean,
yeah, and that game lasted 4 hours. We have a rain. If we have to sit through a bullpen game in Game 4, I mean that game's gonna last 8 hours, 9 hours.
Something really funny that I saw popped up on Twitter. You probably saw this. John Boy tweeted it. The cost of installing a retractable roof.
Oh, I did see this.
Versus paying someone to hold a tarp with a helicopter over the stadium for the game. Compare the two. And the arguments are pretty interesting. It's never going to, I mean, you just think about it logically. The size of the tarp, the weight that it would have to withhold, depending on how much rain. I mean, 100% chance of rain. If it rains for 3 hours, it's a lot of weight of rain for the water. And then what are you going to do with the water that's sitting on the tarp? Are you going to, transfer it over to the drought areas of the desert? Are you going to dump it in the ocean? What are you going to... That's never going to happen. I mean, but imagine. There's just a helicopter. You just hear the helicopter the whole time.
This is the Game 7 podcast where we talk about how helicopters can bring a tarp over a stadium instead of building a retractable roof for $500 million.
Hey, you never know, man. And you get the... What is it? The blimp? Who does the blimp?
Goodyear?
Yeah, the Goodyear
does
blimp.
the blimps.
Well, you get the Goodyear helicopters holding up the tarp. You could put a lot of sponsoring on that. I mean, that's a win for sponsoring. Taco Bell, steal a tarp, steal game. I don't know, man. So potential right now, we'll see how that goes. I think they'll play through it. If anything, they'll play a 1 a.m. game in New York. That would be pretty intense. Nobody would watch that. They wouldn't actually do that. When was the last time there was actually a weather cancellation in the playoffs? Do you remember any? Because I can't remember any. I think they always find a way to play. Because when I heard this, I was like, what? They cancel a game in the playoffs? Talking about the playoffs?
I mean, there's definitely been colder weather.
Oh, 100%.
You know?
I mean, think about this is a completely different sport, but think about the playoff game between Minnesota and Seattle a while back. That was negative 13 degrees or something like that, and they played through it. And all the games that were played at was in Vesco Field, Sports Authority Field, when it was freezing cold, and we were watching it from the comfort of our homes.
There's no information on when the last time a postseason game was canceled.
Good answer.
To weather. I Googled it.
So it's clear that both our predictions have really gone out the window.
Yep.
It's really whoever makes it out of the ALCS for us, because I had Yankees, you had Astros.
Yeah.
So, and I also had Braves, you had Cardinals, so there's your win there. So I think we'll be tied, but if the Astros make it, then you win.
Yep.
You finally won. Did you win your fantasy football this week?
I did. I did win my fantasy football this week. I won by I think 20 points because he had
the Dolphins.
Yeah, he had the Dolphins his entire team.
And they almost won.
Yeah,
the Dolphins almost won.
They were a play away from winning.
That play was interesting.
Correction, I actually won by 16.9 points.
Oh, even better.
So I'm 1-5. Let's go. I'm not in last place anymore, baby.
I'm pretty sure I'm 5-2. No, that wouldn't make sense. I'm 4-2. I mean, that's pretty good. Look at that. 4-2, won 153 to 129. James Conner went off for once. I was ready for him to show out. Finally did it, because I'm tired of him not showing off. I got a pending move. Someone wants to trade. Should I trade Alvin Kamara for Sony Michel and Kerryon Johnson?
That's a bad move.
Yeah, that's a trade you would make. What the heck, Brady? Brady, if you're listening, no. So I do kind of have a problem this week, though, if you look at it, because I have 3 players in my starting lineup that have buys. James Conner, Mike Evans, and Greg Olsen.
So something that I said about postseason baseball throughout the last couple weeks is that somebody's throwing a no-hitter this postseason. And the Nationals have gotten really, really close in this NLCS. Anibal Sanchez went, 8 innings? 8 innings of no-hit baseball. Scherzer took a no-hitter to, was it the 7th inning?
Something like that. It was a deep no-hitter.
Scherzer took a no-hitter into the 7th inning, and then Strasburg was throwing a no-hitter through 3 innings, which obviously isn't worth it. But I thought for sure that someone was throwing a no-hitter this postseason, and I think I've gotten pretty close.
You're on the right track. How are we doing on your...
If Patrick Corbin can throw a no-hitter tonight, is he the one that's starting for the Nationals tonight?
I thought he was the bullpen guy now. I thought he was a... What does that LOOGY stand for again?
I don't know.
Left-handed one-out guy. Do you know what that means? It means you bring in a lefty for one out to face the lefty, and then you bring in the righty.
And then you pull him.
Do they have... That's called a loogie. Do they have roogies?
What?
Why do you never see a right-handed one-out guy? I mean, there's more righty hitters in baseball, so usually they can get more than one out. That's pretty cool. There's so many cool terms. So many cool. That was a tough word.
There's so many cool terms in baseball.
Well, have you ever seen the routine baseball
It is
dictionary?
Patrick tonight. It is Patrick Corbin going up against Dakota Hudson.
Who's pitching for? Oh, thanks.
Hudson making his first postseason debut, or making his postseason debut.
Starting debut, or is he pitched yet?
No, his postseason debut.
Wow.
In Game 4.
Wow, in an elimination game. That's crazy. Well, here's this article from the NPR. Baseball rules for next season may eliminate the loogie. Is that what it's called, or is it logie? What would you say? How would you pronounce it?
Logie?
That's how you would do it?
I think Logie.
L-O-O-G-Y. Ooh, that kind of sounds smooth.
L-O-O-G-Y. This is the Game 7 podcast where we talk about very
Loogies.
interesting stuff.
Loogies.
So anyways, I know you got the Yankees winning, but break me down this series. Do you have the Yankees winning 3 in a row?
No. This is going 7, and I think that was evident how powerful the Yankees offense was in Game 1 and how dominant they looked on the mound.
Yeah.
And how the Astros fought back. I mean, this team knows how to win baseball games. You see what Alex Bregman does in the box and how they're catching these tips. If you guys haven't seen it from the previous series when Houston faced Tampa Bay, they broke down how the tells that Tampa Bay's pitchers, I think it was Tyler Glasnow that was pitching for
was tipping his pitches.
Yeah, so if his hands were up higher, he was going heater, fastball. But if his hands were lower, he was throwing a curveball. And that was such an easy tell. And remember, this is the same team that 2 years ago in the World Series was catching every single tip that Yu Darvish threw for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So they got something going on. They know their stuff. And it's not to say that the Yankees don't.
It's all a video breakdown and analysis and comparing them side by side. I know they were breaking it down earlier in the year. It had to have been like May. I forget who it was that they were pitching against or who it was that they were playing against. But they were looking at the left-handed pitcher's right foot. So when he lifted up his foot, if his toe was pointed down, it was a fastball. If his toe was pointed up or whatever, then he was throwing something off speed. And it's just little tells like that the Astros are able to pick up on.
Well, and it's also interesting, like, when you're in the box, and I've never faced a 95-mile-per-hour heater. I've faced 90s, but never 95. Are you actually thinking? I mean, these are the greatest hitters in the world, so they are thinking about it. But just imagine that. You're sitting there like, am I going to get a 95-mile-per-hour cutting fastball and the nasty Ottavino slider? Like, what are you thinking there? And you're like, if you can get that small hint, like if you know that his hands are up higher and you're going to get a fastball, you're going to be ready to hit that.
Yep.
So
100%.
But, I mean, what do you think about reverse tipping your pitches? Is that a thing?
Well, you saw James Paxton trying to do it last night.
How so?
Where so he picked up on himself that when he was digging into his glove, every time he was throwing something off speed, right? That's like one of the easiest tells.
Yeah.
Even you do it at 10-year-old baseball.
Yeah.
When you're throwing something off speed, you're digging into your glove to get the right grip.
That's true.
So he started to do it for every single pitch, so that way they would just think, yeah, you couldn't tell if he was actually digging in there for a fastball or digging in there for an off speed. And so he did it for every single pitch, and I think that's how you do it reverse.
That's what makes baseball so great, because there's always a counterattack to everything.
There's also a belief that the Astros have the Yankees signs, that they know their signs.
I mean, doesn't that come up in every single series, it feels like?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just part of baseball. Like, you're always trying to steal signs.
Yeah.
Like, not steal, like, do it in a wrong way, but just, like, obviously, if I'm on second base, if they're getting one sign, I'm going to tip my pitcher, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not, like, hiring someone in the clubhouse to go, like, through their... I don't know.
do you remember, it had to have been, 5-6 years ago now, we were in high school when this happened. In college baseball, there was in the College World Series over the summer, somebody hired a professional, somebody from the Army that does signals and signs and stuff like that for intercepting signs basically from other countries. And so they hired this dude to basically sit in their clubhouse during games and pick up on opposing universities' signs. And so he pretty much sat there all game long, and he'd have it done. He'd know their signs by the first inning because he's just that smart of a guy.
What was his name? Do you know?
I don't know his name. I don't even remember what university that it was.
That's crazy.
But yeah, teams will go to extreme lengths to pick up signs, I guess.
I'm trying to find this. I think his name is Mitch Mustaine. Does that sound about right?
I couldn't tell you. It was 5-6 years ago. I've had a couple concussions between now and then.
This he's a football player.
Oh.
I don't know why it came up. He transferred. Transfer season?
Let's talk about the Broncos, man.
The 2-4 Broncos.
2-4 Broncos.
The Broncos.
Real quick, do you have this video pulled up about what the Broncos should do to trade Cam Newton? Or Broncos should do to trade for Cam Newton? I saw there was a Bleacher Report basically posted in an article today, literally about 10 minutes before we started this podcast, about if the Broncos could realistically make a trade for Cam Newton. I forget who it is that's commentating on this, but as soon as I hear the voice, I might know.
So we have Left Cow and Westbrook. That's the two words.
Okay.
It's about a minute. We're going to listen to him, how the Broncos could be the perfect spot for Cam Newton.
What if Cam Newton was traded to the team that he lost to in the Super Bowl, the Denver Broncos? So he goes to a Rick Scangarello, Kyle Shanahan offense with Phillip Lindsay and Royce Freeman, with what's blossoming into a real number one in the NFL in Cortland Sutton. They've invested young draft picks in their offensive line and tight end Noah Fant, and their defense with Vic Fangio is always going to find a way to keep it low. He has a very good friend on the team in Von Miller, and John Elway is obsessed with tall quarterbacks.
I still like Chicago, but I think that Denver would be very interesting.
Right?
Because they want to run the football.
Yes.
They want to use their short game with Lindsey out of the backfield.
Yes.
Now, obviously, Royce Freeman pounding the ball down the throat, and they want to play defense.
Yeah.
So I think in a situation where Cam isn't always the most accurate, he doesn't have to throw the ball 30 times a game and win a game that way. I think that might work.
What if he went?
That's pretty crazy right there. And I thought the same thing as soon as I saw it come out. I was like, Cam Newton trade? First and second overall pick? Von Miller and Cam Newton reunited? That's the first thing that came to my mind.
Really?
Yeah, but I don't know.
The biggest thing that stands out to me from what he was saying was that John Elway loves tall quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, and we both looked at each other when that came through. That's my noise when I don't know. I think it'd be great, but it'd also be horrible at the same time.
It is. It's a Madden trade. It's something that you do in a video game, but it's not something that I don't think will happen. Although I do see, I do see the positives in it because Cam Newton's a tall quarterback, and at this stage in his career, he's learning that he can't get out of the pocket as much because he continues to get injured. If he's not healthy, it's because he's moving out of the pocket and trying to run for yards instead of just trying to throw the ball.
Well, he's also one of the biggest quarterbacks we've ever seen, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even if he's in the pocket, just him in general.
He's a big dude.
What do you think the Panthers will demand from the Broncos? Because the first name that comes to my mind, and you'll probably say the same thing, is Chris Harris Jr.
Yep, I think 100% you're probably going to trade Chris Harris Jr. and you're probably going to look at trying to dump Drew Lock also in that deal.
Wow.
Because if you really do pick up Cam Newton, then you're saying that this is now our quarterback for the future. Joe Flacco's not our quarterback. Drew Lock is not the future. Drew Lock is in this package. Drew Lock and Chris Harris Jr. for Cam Newton.
But why would Carolina want Drew Lock if they had this Kyle Allen kid that's super good?
Well, what are the Broncos going to do with Drew Lock?
Build him.
The reason why you drafted him was to be the quarterback of the future. Am I wrong?
Oh, 100%. But, Cam Newton has the 12th biggest contract of all quarterbacks. Von Miller. Oh, let me take this back. He has the 12th biggest quarterback. He has the 12th biggest contract in the NFL.
Wow.
Von Miller and Joe Flacco both make more money than him.
Wow.
But if you look at the contracts, 1, 2, and 3 are Kirk Cousins, Jameis Winston, and Marcus Mariota. Marcus Mariota got benched last week. Jameis Winston has
all three of those
5 games of 4 interceptions.
All 3 of those guys are not good quarterbacks.
Be careful what you say about Kirk Cousins. You might get cut. But Antonio Brown's on this list. Taylor Lewan. Does that ring a bell to you? Leonard Williams. These are offensive linemen.
Yep.
Let me take that back. Taylor is an offensive tackle. Leonard is a defensive tackle. And then you get Tom Brady, Amari Cooper, AJ Boye, T.Y. Hilton. It's a pretty deep. 49, Emmanuel Sanders makes the top 50. That's pretty neat. Where's Patrick Mahomes? Is he on this list?
No, he's on that rookie contract still, man.
$645,000. He's tied for 1,043rd.
Wow. And to think he's lost back-to-back games. Okay,
Well,
so the Broncos pitched their first shutout since 2017 to win their second straight game in this season. Sitting at 2-4, Will, should they still dump talent? We talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I believe on last week's podcast also a little bit, but should the Broncos still be dumping Chris Harris Jr. and Derek Wolfe?
Well, let me make an argument here. They win on Thursday night. They're tied for first in the AFC West.
No.
Who's the best team in the AFC West right now?
It's still the Chiefs. They're at 4-2.
4-2, correct?
So they go to 4-3. We go to 3-4. So we're still a game behind them.
But you have the tiebreaker. You see-
There's no tiebreaker. We're 3-4 and they're 4-3.
yeah, but if you win out, then
Then you got to beat the Chiefs twice still.
twice. You only play them once. After you play them, once you beat them the first time, you only play them one more time.
Yeah, correct. You play them twice
I don't know.
in the season. You play them twice in the season.
But-
Correct.
Get the point here is they are 100% in the conversation for the AFC West if they win this game on Thursday.
If they win this game, but if you fall to 2-5, then you're done.
I mean, the two teams in front of you are only where's the game back?
To win this division, you got to win 12 games. So ideally, you got to win.
I mean, the Chargers aren't good. The Raiders are the Raiders. And the Chiefs have not been the Chiefs this year.
So okay, so if the Chiefs win, they move to 5-2, right? So they have 7 more games just to win, just to go 5-2. You only have to win 5. If the Chiefs win Thursday night, they only have to win 5 more games to win this division. 6 more games to win the division.
Here's an interesting point to note on the Chiefs. They have not lost on the road. They're 1-2 at home, and they'll be in Denver on Thursday.
Yeah, because both those home losses came back-to-back at home, to the Colts and to the Texans.
The Texans, yeah. The Broncos, this is another interesting point. They've allowed 106 points on the year.
Yep.
They've also scored 106 points on the year. That's a very interesting stat to be 5 games into the year, 6 games into the year, and have 0 net points. That's really interesting.
Well, it's also interesting when you think, I wouldn't have believed anybody if they had told me entering Thursday Night Football this week, Week 7, that the Chiefs would be losers of back-to-back games at home and the Broncos would be winners in back-to-back games. I wouldn't have believed anybody if they told me that at the beginning of the season.
Well, and to say that the 49ers are 5-0 and you have the Rams that are actually, you could say they're even with the Cardinals for the worst in the NFC West.
Yeah.
It's a team that played in the Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
So, I mean, look at the NFC North. Other than Green Bay, which was the team that we thought maybe didn't have anything that they were going to make moves for. I mean,
They've looked pretty good. They looked really good last night. Making a comeback.
This NFL season has been one of the weirdest ones I can remember, just because of how balanced it is. If your name isn't the New England Patriots or the San Francisco 49ers, I mean, even the Saints are 5-1, Green Bay's 5-1. Other than that, the Buffalo Bills are 4-1.
Broncos are 2-4.
Very interesting.
And a couple of those games are one-possession games, so you look at a team that could potentially be 4-2.
Yeah.
5-1 even.
This will be. We always talk about statement wins on this show. This would be a statement win for the Broncos if they can beat the Chiefs. And
100%.
they have not done that in quite a long time.
Kansas City's a 3.5-point favorite. At least as of this morning. They were 3.5 points favored.
It sounds about right. Be the underdog.
The over-under for this game is 49 points. You take an over-under.
49 points?
So you're looking at a 25-24 game.
Man. I would... What do you think?
I'm gonna go over because I think to beat the Chiefs, you have to score more than 24 points.
Interesting point to make, because I did remember seeing this week that Mahomes, for the first time in his career, 2 weeks ago, was held under 25 points.
Yep.
And last week, he was also held under 25. He had 24 points against the Texans.
And this is a Broncos defense that's been averaging, what, I've got it somewhere in the notes here, 16 points a game, or holding teams to 16 points a game, I believe.
I'm going to go with the under here. And it's clear that even if Mahomes goes off and the Chiefs score over 25 like they normally do, the Broncos have to score 25 too. And I just don't have belief that they can score 25 against the Chiefs.
I actually do have belief that they can score more than 25. I do believe it because if you look at this Chiefs run game or this Chiefs defense, teams run all over them. You know, Phillip Lindsay, he's ran for 397 yards in 84 attempts this year, 4 touchdowns. He also has 19 catches for 147 yards. You also look at Royce Freeman, 284 yards in 66 attempts. Broncos rank 15th in the NFL in rushing overall, so at 116 yards per game.
14.
You know who ran for 116 yards per game last week? Carlos Hyde of the Texans. Ran all over the Chiefs by himself. Kind of interesting. 116 yards for Carlos Hyde, and that's exactly what the Broncos average.
It's important to note, like you said, 17.7 points per game. That's 26th in the NFL for the Broncos. So they'll have to, 26th in points, 25th in yards, 23rd in pass, and I guess tied for 14th in rush yards, 14th, 15th. So. They beat a Tennessee team that doesn't really have their shit together, to be completely honest with you.
Yep.
They beat a Chargers team that fell off the face of the earth. They've lost a close game against Jacksonville, who isn't half bad. They lost a close game against Chicago, who probably should have won and wasn't half bad to start the year.
Yep.
But like you said earlier in the year, they have an interesting schedule coming up. Kansas City is not unfortunately, but it's possibly a winnable game, and you wouldn't have thought that coming into 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
You split the next week is Indianapolis, where they haven't necessarily played all too well. That's an earlier game, too, on a Sunday, obviously. And then they host Cleveland, who Cleveland has been all over the map. That's just all of a sudden, like... My question now for you is, look at the Monday Night Football game last night, Green Bay and Detroit.
Yep.
There was 2 controversial calls against Tyler Flowers. Hands to the face.
Yep.
Is what it was called, I think. Illegal use of hands. It wasn't hands to the face.
Yeah, illegal use of hands.
How do you feel about these? How do you feel about that?
I think both the calls were wrong. If you look at the video, I believe his hands are against the defender's chest, or maybe upper. He grabs basically his pads.
Yeah.
That's what he's doing. He's grabbing his pads. So after the first one, I believe he went and talked to the ref, and the ref said, "Hey, yeah, your hands are too high up." So later in the game, he moves his hands down all throughout the game, and the second one, his hands are a little bit lower, but he's still holding on to that pad. I just don't see. I don't think it's wrong. I don't think what the player did was wrong. It's a bad call.
What do you think about this? Joe Flacco, Chris Harris Jr., and a first-round pick for Cam Newton. What do you think about that? Like, honestly.
I wouldn't throw a first-round pick in there if you're throwing in Chris Harris Jr.
Well, he's an expiring contract. There's no saying that he would respond.
If you trade him to Carolina, they're ensuing that he's signing an extension already.
I think that's important to note. And if you get that commitment, then you don't necessarily have to throw in the first-round pick.
So
but I don't know if you'll get that from Chris Harris. But how about this? You throw Chris Harris Jr. out of the mix, Cam Newton for Joe Flacco.
Oh, they wouldn't accept that.
And I could see your point there.
That's the one where you're throwing in a pick.
Yeah, but would you be willing to give up Joe Flacco for Cam Newton, who hasn't been healthy all year? Would you be willing to do that? Doesn't that make more sense for both sides? Because
we're not winning games right now. So why not just stick it out with Joe Flacco?
They're 2-0 in the last 2 weeks.
Okay, so if you lose to Kansas City, then you fall to 2-5. You're basically not making the playoffs at this point. Why not just ride it out with Joe Flacco? Let Drew Lock. But Joe Flacco is supposed to be, or Drew Lock is supposed to be the understudy of Joe Flacco. They're supposed to mimic each other's game. A tall, lengthy quarterback who likes to air the ball out and hit his tight ends. That's what Drew Lock is.
I feel like Drew Lock is
Joe Flacco is.
Drew Lock probably compares better to Cam Newton to me.
You think so?
I feel like they compare better. Joe Flacco has always been a quarterback that stays in the pocket. Yes, they're both arguably tall.
The only thing that
the mobility.
Joe Flacco airs the ball out, and I don't think Drew Lock is going to have Drew Lock is not going to want to be a mobile quarterback. Can he be mobile? Yes. But he wants to air the ball out. He wants go routes to Sutton and Sanders and just throw the ball down 40 yards downfield just like Patrick Mahomes did first play of the game.
And here's a point, and I want you to think of this in the whole retrospect here. Think about fan appreciation. Think about what kind of revenue it's going to bring in, essentially. Think about what it'll do for the team. Who would you rather have as your quarterback? Joe Flacco? Throw all the other things out of the window, as in what they've done so far, what they've said so far.
I thought you just said take everything into account.
Everything in an account except for what's happening. So if you had to decide which quarterback you could have, right? So you could have Cam Newton or you could have Joe Flacco as your quarterback. You've never said that Drew Lock's your future quarterback. You've never said you believed in Joe Flacco. That just doesn't matter. But if the quarterbacks, you're weighing their positives here. So what kind of money or what kind of revenue is Joe Flacco going to bring in versus Cam Newton? What kind of game is Joe Flacco going to put up at 36, 37 years old, however old he is, versus Cam Newton, who's younger? Who would you rather have?
I'd honestly rather have Joe Flacco because I know he's going to stay on the field. Cam Newton might not stay on the field for the rest of the season.
And I would say the opposite.
He's continuously hurt.
And I would say the opposite there. And I wouldn't say that Cam Newton I feel confident that he'll stay on the field, but I don't feel confident that Joe Flacco will stay on the field.
Why wouldn't Joe Flacco stay on the field?
I mean, he's old.
He's not as old as he's not as old as what you're making him out to be. I bet he's like 34. That's what I would say.
How old is he?
Would you look at that? He's 34 years old. January 16th, 1985.
Nice.
6'6".
How long has he been in the league?
He's been in the league for what? He got drafted in 2008.
How long is that?
So 11 years.
Yeah. So every 10 years, you add 5 years to your age in the NFL. So you have to add 2 years, so 36 and a half. So he's almost 37.
I have never once heard that.
I just made that up right now. But
Yeah, I have never once heard that.
I mean, it's true.
Cam Newton, drafted. He's only 3 years younger than him.
But he's
Cam
been
Newton
in the
was
NFL
drafted in 2011 by 3 years.
Okay, but that's not 10 years. So 2011, so that's 8 years. So he's not even, I guess he's 1 year older, so.
So he's 30.
Yeah, 30, prime years.
Prime years? What? That's a
bruh.
Bruh. Yeah, where's my soundboard at to start playing these sounds, man?
You just don't get one, man.
Let's get back to this Chiefs-Broncos game. We got off track, man. We got off track. Chiefs defense allowed 472 yards last Sunday against the Texans. All right? Like I said, Carlos Hyde rushed for 116 against the Chiefs. Lindsey and Freeman should both go to town on Thursday night. If you want to talk about the defense, Broncos defense got after Marcus Mariota. 7 sacks, 3 interceptions. One of those interceptions coming in garbage time. DeMarcus Walker, Derek Wolfe each had 2 sacks. All right? Defense struggling. They struggle to make the big plays, but in general, when it comes down to allowing points, like they're only allowing 17 points a game. And this is a Chiefs team that it's a high-powered Chiefs offense.
With now Tyreek Hill healthy and back.
Yeah. So what are you going to look for on Thursday if the Broncos win? One, you're going to look for a solid rushing attack, right? Chiefs, like I said earlier, Chiefs let teams run all over them and control the game. Lindsey's ran for almost 400 yards this season, and is also caught for almost 150. Freeman's ran for 284, and he's averaging 4.3 yards per attempt. Broncos are 15th in rushing overall. I've said that before. 3 of the top 5 teams in rushing have played against the Chiefs already this season. You got the Ravens that are first, the Colts that are 4th, and the Texans that are 5th. All right? Number 2, you got to look for Joe Flacco throwing for more than 200 yards. Joe Flacco needs to have a great night if the Broncos want to stay in this game against a high-powered Chiefs offense. All right? Broncos have scored 16 or fewer points in 4 of their games this season, and their highest scoring game this season came in that 26-24 loss to Jacksonville. He's also thrown an interception in 5 straight games, and he only has 6 touchdown throws on this season. He's only completed 66% of his passes.
And you'd rather have him than
for 1,400. At least he can stay on the field. Well, we said all season long, Joe Flacco doesn't need to go out there and be the best quarterback out there. He doesn't need to be the better quarterback on the field. He needs to be a game manager. Joe Flacco just needs to manage the game and just keep this Chiefs offense off of the field.
Is that what he's doing? 5 picks in 5 games?
No, but that's what he has to do on Thursday night against the Chiefs. He has to have the game of the season this year. He has to have his best game. He's thrown for fewer than 200 yards in both of these Broncos wins. You know? Fewer than 200 yards. So he has to throw for more than 200 yards this game. He has to be a game manager. But what does that come with? Your wide receivers have to make plays. If Joe Flacco can make a pass near the hands of Sutton and Sanders, they're going to catch it. Assuming Sanders is going to be able to play. He left Sunday's game because of a knee injury, and afterward, Vic Fangio told reporters that he wasn't sure of the severity of Sanders' injury. But Ian Rappaport yesterday said that we're very optimistic that Sanders is going to play on Thursday night. And Sanders is important. He's got 25 receptions for 307 yards. That's 12.3 yards per catch.
Whether he's making receptions or not, whether he's running after the catch or not, he's important because he takes some of the eyes off of Cortland Sutton, who is now the number 1 wide receiver for this team.
Exactly. There's no arguing that Sanders isn't the number 1 option on this team anymore. Joe Flacco likes Sutton, and he's liked him since training camp. That's why Sanders and Sutton got into a fight in training camp at UC Health Training Center.
100%.
You know? And Sanders, like I said, 25 receptions, 300 yards, 2 touchdowns. Sanders has to have a touchdown on Thursday night for this Broncos team. And like I said, Cortland Sutton's been Flacco's top target. 30 passes for 477 yards. That's almost 16 yards per catch and 3 touchdowns. You know, you need to score more than 24 points for this Broncos team. You're looking at what? Sanders having a touchdown, Sutton having a touchdown, and Phillip Lindsay having a touchdown. That's 21 points right there. You add in a couple field goals from the best kicker in the league. I guess I can't really say best kicker in the league, Brandon McManus. Actually, that brings me to my number 4 point. You got to score on special teams this week. Broncos need to score more than 24 points. Scoring on special teams is going to solidify that. Brandon McManus, 12 of 14 on field goals this year. His only 2 misses are from 50 yards out, or more than 50 yards out. Broncos are one of the NFL's best teams when it comes to kickoff returns. They're second with an average of 33 yards per return, but they only have 4 returns, and one of those was this past week.
Well, you just don't return the football in Denver.
Yeah, exactly. The ball's always kicked through the end zone. But if the Chiefs are going to punt to you, you have to return. You have to have a solid return. You have to make this field short. Because if you're just going to let it be a touchback and you're going to take the ball in the 20, we know Joe Flacco's not going to be able to put together a great drive. At least he hasn't been able to put together a great drive almost all season long. But if you can take that ball in the 10 and get him up to the 40 on a return, boom! Now all of a sudden, all you have to do is get 2 first downs, and you're in field goal range for Brandon McManus.
100%, man.
You know, and the 5th point is Denver's defensive numbers and stopping the big plays. Chiefs are going to come out and throw an 80-yard bomb to Tyreek Hill to open this game. We know that's going to happen. First play of the game from scrimmage is going to be Patrick Mahomes saying, "Let me see how far I can throw this ball, and let's see if Tyreek Hill can go catch it." He's going to throw it. First play of the game. First play from scrimmage for the Chiefs. All right, so Denver had a shutout on Sunday for the first time since 2017, since 2017. The Athletic reported that the Broncos defense allows an average of 150 rushing yards and 11 total touchdowns in its first 4 games. In its last 2 games where we won, opponents have a touchdown and just 74 total rushing yards. You know, Broncos entered Sunday's game with 5 total sacks and had 7 against the Titans on Sunday. So now all of a sudden you got 12 sacks in 3 games.
I want to make a point here, and it's kind of off track. And I think I want to close this Broncos segment up. If you look at the league leaders in defense on the year, and we argued that, after, was it 3 or 4 weeks that the Broncos didn't have any takeaways? I guess that was week 3. They didn't have any takeaways against Green Bay, and then week 4 they did.
Yep.
If you look at total defense, yards per game, number 1, the New England Patriots, who have not lost.
Yep.
Number 2, the San Francisco 49ers, who have not lost.
Yep.
You have Buffalo, who is 4-1. So they're pretty dang good. And then you have the Broncos. Granted, they are 32 yards more per game than the third place Buffalo Bills. But they're in the top 5 in defensive yards per game with 4 really good teams. So they're not far off. You move to passing. Number 1 is San Francisco. Number 2 is New England. Number 3 is Buffalo. And right there is number 4 is Denver. So this team is not far off.
Exactly.
And we've said this all year. Far off, going to get you a playoff spot?
No, because you still have to win 12 games. 10 games.
12 games seems really...
12 games will win you the division.
And this NFL...
But 10 games is gonna have to get you a wild card spot.
In this season in the NFL, 12 games seems totally out of realm. And 10 games seems like winning a division.
Gosh, I
This is
disagree.
not the AFC West that it was 2 years ago. Or last year, for crying out loud.
I disagree. I mean, you want to look at the Chargers last year, who struggled almost all season long, and then they put together a great 8 weeks to end the season, and then they go out and make a wild card. You know? Somebody's going to get hot in this division. And I wouldn't doubt if it's the Chargers again.
I just can't see that. They just have been so inconsistent. Every team in this division has been so inconsistent.
They were inconsistent to start the year last year, too. They were. I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but they were inconsistent last year. And then they fight back. They win like 7 of 8 games to make the playoffs.
It'll be interesting. The Bills have a bye week this week. No, that was last week. I'm sorry. That was week 6.
Yep.
Who's bye this week?
Pittsburgh.
Carolina.
Pittsburgh.
And Pittsburgh. So.
Somebody else. I don't know who it is. Let's talk about the Avs, man.
You want to talk about the Avs?
The 5-0 undefeated Avs.
No, say that again. It's 5-0-0, my guy.
5-0. 5-0-0.
Yeah. They've won 2 games. No, they've won 5 games.
Yeah, I was like, what?
Sorry.
And again with the music, man.
Do you not like it?
No, I mean, it's good, but I'd like to hear some yeehaw country music, man.
You don't like 50 Cent. You've heard it here first. Isaac doesn't like 50 Cent.
Tell me about the Avs, man.
You know who is 50 Cent? The Avs. They're 5-0-0. Don't forget it. They haven't tied. They haven't lost in OT. They won all but 1 game in regulation, and they won 1 game in OT. Calgary, Minnesota, Boston, Arizona, Washington, all minus Minnesota, all playoff teams. 3 of those have been battling. 3 of those have been battling for a Stanley Cup the last 2 years. And they were all close games. They were all straight up to the end. So, and they're all dubs. I think that's important to note. Mikko Rantanen, the big extension that I almost said Rockies. The big extension that the Avalanche made this year. 9 points so far in the year. Leads the team. He has 4 goals. And then obviously 5 assists. Which isn't even tops on the team. McKinnon has 6 assists. Isaac's yawning again, so that's...
I don't know anything about the Avs, to be honest. I know, like...
You're wearing an Avs polo.
That's just because I work there. I work at the Pepsi Center, man.
So you should be wearing a Pepsi Center polo, not an Avs polo.
I'm employed by the teams that play at the Pepsi Center.
You're not employed by the teams. You're employed by the company that owns the center. That has nothing to do with the teams.
That is wrong. Okay, so what happens is the Pepsi Center is host to the Avs, Nuggets, Mammoth, and Concerts.
Correct.
Right?
Can I make a point there?
So the Pepsi Center is employed by these teams, correct?
No, it's the other way around. Those teams rent out the Pepsi Center. It's not their stadium.
They make the Pepsi Center go around.
Correct, but that's because they rent it out.
So then the Pepsi Center goes out to get a company to do the hospitality and service on all these floors. So that's where they got my company in there, and I'm employed by this company.
Correct. You're not employed by the Avalanche or the Rockies or the Nuggets.
We report to KSE. We report to the Pepsi Center.
Yeah. What is KSE?
Kroenke Sports Entertainment.
What is Kroenke Sports Entertainment?
They run the Pepsi Center. Correct.
So they rent out the Pepsi Center to the Colorado Avalanche. Therefore, you work for the company that rents out the stadium.
And when the teams have games, they need employees, and so I am employed when the teams have games. Boom.
Right, but where does
Loophole. I'm right. You're wrong. Just continue about the Avs.
No.
McKinnon has 6 assists. Go on what you were saying.
Well, that sounds like an scapegoat because you didn't let me finish to tell you the fact that the money that you make during those Avalanche games does not go to the Avalanche. It goes to Kroenke Sports Entertainment. So you work for Kroenke Sports Entertainment. It's as simple as that. 6 assists for McKinnon. Cale Makar, Rookie of the Year. 4th defenseman in NHL history to start a career with 5 games of points. That's a 5-game point streak for those counting out there.
Wow.
Mikko Rantanen and Nathan McKinnon also have points in all 5 games, but that was kind of expected. I mean, it was expected from Makar, but not this much. And, I mean, arguably one of the best defensemen to start a career, to say that. The new additions, Nazem Kadri. Can you say that?
Nazem Kadri?
Slow it down. Nazem
Kadri.
There you go. You just can't say Nazem. You have to say his name slowly.
Nazem Kadri.
There you go.
Nazem.
Andre Burakovsky had his homecoming in Washington last night, and he showed out. He has 2 game-winning goals. I mean, he had assists. I mean, Kadri had 3 points in the first period. It was 4-0 before even 10 minutes in.
Yep.
So they're making a difference, these new additions. Grubauer's been clutch.
Every time you say Grubauer's name, that's what I say.
I am Gru. Connor McGahey, man. They're now in the middle of the longest road trip of the year. It started off in Washington yesterday with a weird 2 p.m. game. They're now in Pittsburgh to face off Sid the Kid. Sidney Crosby, probably arguably one of the best players in hockey history. He's not the same anymore. That's going to be a tough game. Then they go to Florida. Florida's good, but they're not the next team they play. That's Tampa Bay. They are a cup favorite every year. Doesn't seem like they ever get there, but they are a cup favorite. Then you get the defending champs, St. Louis, which will be a very interesting game because that's arguably the Avalanche's biggest rival the last couple of years.
St. Louis Blues, man.
And then you get Vegas, and Vegas is always going to be competitive.
Yep.
They rigged the draft.
Yeah, they did.
And you still can't watch the games. I think that's important to note that you still can't watch.
So what are the chances the Avs come back undefeated? Come back home.
Low. 10%.
10%. Okay, who do they lose to? Pittsburgh and Tampa Bay, maybe?
I mean, you don't win games on the road in the NHL. That's just kind of a fact. You have to win at home and split your games on the road. And I think that goes for all sports. But this is an impossible road trip. When you hear the teams on this list and the length of this trip, it's impossible for them. But the way they've been playing, the way they broke out in Washington, there's just one team bound to beat them. And it's probably going to be a team like Florida that you don't expect them to beat, and they're going to lay off the gas and
get beat.
The thing that's going to hurt them is they're going to be tired, and that's obvious in hockey. But this is a team that plays fast. They move fast. So I think it's important to note.
It's a young team, man.
That it'll be very interesting if they can continue this. I want to make one quick point on the Nuggets, and I saw this in an Athletic article yesterday. The thing that's going to be their kryptonite is their depth.
They have too many players that can play good.
Correct. So there are going to be people that aren't happy that they aren't playing.
Will Barton. That's the first guy that comes to mind. Will Barton.
And I just threw the whole bench. It's going to be very interesting. I mean, I think it was 7 of their 15 or 16 players are in contract years, arguably.
Mm.
So
this is your year to win before everybody wants to up and leave ship.
Yeah. That'll be very, very interesting.
All right, Will, tell me what we learned today, man.
Oh, man. That's it?
That's it.
That's the end of the show?
That's the end of the show.
Really?
What did we learn today, man?
Learned that you don't like talking about sports. You just want to end it. We learned that the Avalanche apparently are 2-0. I don't know where I got that one from. The Broncos are still in contention. They have one of the best defenses in the NFL, despite having a very, very slow start. I've learned that Isaac needs to get more sleep because he obviously likes yawning. I don't get that one. I think there's a sign on his side of the studio that says yawn.
Yeah, there is.
Or maybe there's a picture of someone yawning, so you just think of it every time they look
and then
up.
you're young. I learned today that you're a big supporter of CU, even after they get blown out by the Ducks.
Well, yeah. I'm not a fair weather fan. I actually participate in watching the sports, so I understand CU football. I understand CU. I don't wear an Avalanche polo, even if I don't know what's going on.
And I also learned that I am incredibly good at making takes because I said that there would be a no-hitter in this season in baseball, or this season, this postseason.
Hasn't been.
And there hasn't been, but there have been 3 guys that have gotten pretty close this postseason. Thank you, Met Radio.
It only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades.
Thank you, Met Radio, for hosting us. As always, Met Radio is the student voice of MSU Denver. MSU Denver has a media program called Met Media, who basically employs a bunch of students to make a newspaper, magazine, a TV news production, and the radio production. This is obviously Met Radio, where we do a lot of radio content. Would you look at that? I personally am the sports radio director, so if you're looking to start a podcast, looking to get anything, get your feet wet in the podcast industry, whether you just want to learn about how to do a podcast or what type of content you can create on your own, drop by our office, Tivoli 313. You can find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SoundCloud. We made some takes today, so if you didn't like our takes, email us game7show@gmail.com. You can send us a message on Facebook, like us on Facebook, Game7 Show, YouTube. You'll find the full-length video clip of this podcast on YouTube, Game7 Show. Would you look at that?
You can look at him yawning.
I'm not even yawning. You can follow us on Twitter @_Game7. I run the Twitter account there. I think I'm pretty funny. I think I am, so follow us. You got some great content there, man. You can follow Will @Will Satler, and you can follow myself @Isaac_Bugarin. And real quick, we end the show every week about how I remind everybody to, if they're looking for a pet, go to the shelter first. I just got a pet from the shelter. He was his name is Cologio. He's a boxer mix. We don't know the dad, like who the dad was of this puppy. So we don't know exactly what kind of mix it is just yet. He's 10 weeks old, cutest little puppy. Something my mom was telling me about going to the shelter is that really, instead of going to like an adoption clinic or a breeder, if you go to the shelter, you see all kinds of dogs. You see the old ones, the young ones. My mom was telling me that right when she walked in, there was a cage right next to the door, and there's this dog who obviously knows that this dog he's putting on a show to be adopted, and so whenever anybody walks in, the dog like smiles at the people that walk in, hoping that like he'll catch their attention first. So I don't know, and then you see all these other dogs that are just sad and they need to be adopted, So if you looking for a pet, go to the shelter first.
That's it,
man.
We will see you
next week.